Well, that was the most Florida thing I've ever seen. Well, hi there. My name is Clint LOVES. I have a PhD in biology as well as a master's degree and an undergraduate degree in biology and zoology. With my wife Lehi, I run a biology outreach called Clint's Reptile Room in Springville, Utah, which just celebrated its 5th anniversary. I'm an instructor of biology and a science communicator here on the YouTube channel Clint's Reptiles, which is where you are now, as well as in person at Clint's Life Science Academy. And about a year ago, thanks to your encouragement, I wandered onto TikTok for the first time. And while I still think that TikTok is a poison on our society, it was a great conversation starter. The videos we've made in response to those have been among the most viewed videos that we've ever made. And so, for the 4th time, I guess we're going back in. So Mr. Jason, what have you for us today?
We have 4 categories. Number 1, scary animal encounters. Number 2, amazing animal abilities. Number 3, unidentified animals. And because you love them, emerald tree skinks at number 4.
Yay.
So let's begin with scary animal encounters. I'd actually like to begin with you reacting to that alligator video that we just watched.
Okay.
And for each of these, I'd like to know what is going on and how much danger they were really in.
Okay, so should we watch the alligator again?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so this is a Florida man rescuing his puppy from an alligator. What's that? Look at that. It's okay. I want to go back and watch this one thing. Yeah, his whole face is underwater. But he didn't spit out the cigar at any point. Okay, so as far as what's going on here, I think this guy was probably out on a walk with his little puppy, and the puppy was grabbed by a young alligator, and so the puppy was obviously in tremendous danger. I think without this pretty amazing rescue, that dog was going to drown and probably be eaten by that alligator. And so it was in great danger. The man from that alligator wasn't in any sort of mortal danger. You know, like he's gonna, it's not gonna kill him. It could have injured him, you know, somewhat severely. Like you could need stitches from what that alligator could do to you. Probably there's an outside chance you could lose a digit from an alligator that size. My bigger concern is honestly splashing around in a pond that has at least an alligator in it, because if that's not the big alligator, then you could have some trouble. Not that many people get killed by alligators in Florida, and a lot of people splash around in ponds. Alligators they're just not that prone to killing people, but that was probably the biggest danger, was some other alligator being drawn in by all the splashing. Wow. Well, you would never ever forget that. So that's somebody on the most amazing dive ever. There's humpback whales and orcas there, which, I mean, either of those animals are more than capable of killing a person. I think in reality more people have been killed by wild humpback whales than by wild orcas. But if one was going to kill you deliberately, it'd be an orca, but there's no record of that, though they do disable ships with some regularity these days. I think they're the ultimate animal monster for a movie, because if orcas decided to start killing people, it'd be hard to get away from them. But yeah, so technically no real danger in particular from those two animals, though. Amazing. Absolutely. I mean, what a thing. What an experience. Hey, today I'm so excited to introduce you to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, and the sponsor of today's video. If you're like me and want to enjoy home-cooked meals without the stress, you're gonna love this. HelloFresh delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door, so you can skip the grocery store lines and get straight to the fun part, cooking, if you're into that kind of thing. Each meal comes with delicious, easy-to-follow recipes, making it perfect for busy weeknights or a cozy weekend dinner. Will loves food, and he's a longtime subscriber to HelloFresh, and he loves it. It leveled up his cooking skills, and he enjoys it, and this is shocking, more than eating out. His favorite meal is the one-pan mushu pork bowl with cabbage, scallions, and buttery rice. With HelloFresh, you can choose from over 50 weekly recipes that fit any lifestyle. From calorie smart to family friendly and even quick and easy, there's always something delicious and exciting to try. So if you're ready to make mealtime easier and tastier, click the link in the description or use my code Clint LOVES10 and get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active if you're in the US. Outside the US, the local discount will apply. That's a steal of a deal. So join the HelloFresh family today, and let's make dinner time the best part of the day. As always, thank you for supporting our channel, and happy cooking. So, according to this, and I don't see a better explanation for what's going on here. This is a lady who encountered a spider in her car and simply bailed out. and I think my favorite thing is there's no evidence that she has any regrets about her decision, right? Like I can see you can freak out, you get out of your car. It's slowly wandering off now into oncoming traffic. You'd think at some point you're like, what am I doing? But she's just like, whew, good riddance to that. You know, like she is outie. And as far as how much danger she was in, it's very unlikely that the spider that would be in her car poses any really serious danger. So once she got out, she got on that median. She's probably about as safe as any pedestrian in that situation. I would say the main thing was she put a lot of cars in oncoming traffic in moderate danger. Like her car was not going super fast. They don't look like they were going super fast, but I would say she got pretty lucky that the car made it through to hit a post without a head-on collision with something. So that's the real danger there. That was something. Oh dear. I'll start by saying I, as a kid, was a pretty big fan of James Bond, and that was one of my favorite scenes. Pretty amazing to see how they made it, and seems to me that was quite a bit of danger there. So that is a stuntman playing James Bond, running across the backs of live and at least relatively unrestrained crocodiles. They did show an alligator for a moment at the beginning, which would have been the safer alternative for animals to run across. If you must run across a large crocodilian, I would have done alligators. But those were crocodiles. You could tell from the shape of their mouths. I'm not sure exactly what species. And so they're all so evenly spaced and parallel and there for multiple takes. My guess is they're tethered somehow. But they're still reacting. They're turning on him and they're grabbing. And so the likelihood of him getting some sort of relatively catastrophic injury was definitely moderately high. And I'm interested also in the fact that some of the time he fell down in the middle of all of the crocodiles and nobody came in there to help him out. So yeah, there's some real danger there, and what a scene. Hopefully the crocodiles were not permanently injured in any way by this, but pretty amazing.
Go! Guys, go quick! Bam, stop! I don't know what to do.
So that's the most dangerous thing I think we've seen so far. That is a person being attacked by an angry ostrich, and ostriches kill several people every year. So, I mean, people often talk about the danger posed by things like cassowaries, which almost never kill anybody. Ostriches kill people every single year. Lots of people. And that person easily could have joined the list of people killed by an ostrich that year. Woo!
Oh my goodness.
Oh, here we go.
I'm still uncomfortable. Oh my god.
So, and maybe it's obvious because it wasn't attacking, but let's start off. That's a double wattled cassowary walking up to somebody on the beach. That is an animal that has killed people before, but in general, if you can avoid two things, if you can avoid attacking them, and if you can avoid falling down while having an aggressive interaction with one, they shouldn't kill you. I think only maybe 2, maybe 3 people have ever been killed by cassowaries on record, whereas that many people are killed every year by ostriches. And so cassowaries, and you can see it's a curious bird. It's a lot smaller than an ostrich. The right kick can kill you, but I would much rather be kicked by a cassowary, honestly, than an ostrich. Show me your teeth. Okay. How can you not love them? So that was, for most of the video, a bunch of white-tipped reef sharks, which are not dangerous. They, during the day, usually do find a little place where they all hang out and rest like that. And then at the end there, I never got a good look at its teeth, but that's a porcupine puffer. You can kind of tell by the exposed spikes. So all puffers, or lots of puffers anyway, have spikes, but the porcupine puffers have the visible spikes even when they're folded down, or that you can see from the outside. We've actually got a whole video on puffer fishes and their close relatives. So anyway, that was really enjoyable, and thank you for that.
Okay, the next category is amazing animal abilities.
All right, let's do it.
This ant is a surgeon. It's actually performing an amputation to save another ant's life.
What is this?
A center for ants!
Researchers from universities in Switzerland and Japan have observed that ants can identify and provide individualized care to their injured ant colleagues. These ants can evaluate if an injured limb needs to be amputated or just disinfected. Amputations primarily occur when there's an injury in the femur and seems to extend the injured ants' lives. And there's not a long wait to get medical care. On average, these amputations were performed within about 4 hours after the injury occurred. Ants even use some form of disinfection. They lick the wounds and produce an antimicrobial secretion that improves outcomes. This is the first time a species besides humans has been observed to perform these kinds of life-saving surgeries. Ants have always been amazing. They're super strong for their size, they have fascinating social structures, and they constantly demonstrate incredible intelligence. And now it turns out they might have better healthcare than us.
Well, that's quite amazing. I do think there was a real missed opportunity there to use the term amputation. Yes. But other than that, that's just super cool. I hadn't seen that before. But I have seen something similar in my own life. We actually talked about it in our video on black widows. But I had a black widow in my lab where I worked with burying beetles, and I would feed excess burying beetles to the black widow, and I had praying mantises and a big scorpion, and I didn't like to just put them in the freezer and see them go to waste. So anyway, one day though, the burying beetles are tough beetles, and the black widow got its leg bitten, and it was kind of bent at a funny angle, and the black widow backed away. It used its chelicerae to straighten out its bent limb, and then it cast the limb in silk, then held the limb against its body, went back and dealt with the burying beetle, but kept that one limb folded in. And so it set and cast its own broken limb, which was crazy. And I still need to write a paper about that. I'm sorry. Whoa. Wow. Well, okay, so that's a European mantis on a hummingbird feeder taking down a hummingbird. And that is amazing. I mean, at first, I did not think that it was going to be able to overpower that hummingbird, but here we are. That's incredible. And terrifying. So that's an interesting fight to observe. I don't know exactly what starts it, but the video caption there was making a big deal about how strong the deer is, and that matters. That deer is strong. But I think more than anything, what you're looking at there is is the difference in fighting styles between those two animals. And if you ever watch the way that rams fight each other versus the way that deer fight each other, it's a very different sort of combat. And it's made really obvious by the types of weaponry that they have. So the ram has horns, which are a bone core with a keratinous sheath around it, and it's continuously growing throughout their lives. So as they get older, those get bigger. They're not shed. and they're instruments for blunt impact. And so they'll rear up, and they just come in. They hit heads real hard once, bam, and then they kind of back up a little bit and just kind of like analyze. They're just like, poof. Okay, how was that? How'd you do? Do I want to take one of those again from you, or should I get out of here? But that's sort of it, right? Like if they kept pushing on each other, their hit, they'd slip off of one another. The horns are not really good for like continued pushing. It's about bang, one big hard smack, and then we'll reanalyze if I want to take another one of those from somebody as big and tough as you. Interestingly enough, the mountain sheep that live the longest tend to be smaller males that don't really engage in combat like that. A lot of times you'll find skulls of big tough males that have split right down the middle from one of these hits. So taking a hit like that from a ram is incredibly powerful. And that deer could have had its antlers shattered in the moment of that initial hit. But once it survived the initial hit, after that, everything's deer. Because deer, you see it, their antlers are about locking together. They really don't do like a hard running bang with each other, because they'd probably end up killing each other. They'd end up with antlers in their eyes and piercing their heads and stuff. They kind of come together fairly gently a lot of the time, and then they push on each other. And so that's how they figure out who's the biggest and the strongest, is they just get into these pushing competitions with their antlers all locked up. Sometimes they end up stuck together and both end up dying, or one of them ends up walking around with a severed head of the other one because they couldn't get apart. But it's all about the pushing. So after that big hit, as far as the ram's concerned, it's like, all right, now we're in the analysis phase, and the deer's like, no, we're in the pushing phase now. And so the deer starts pushing, and the ram's just doesn't do that. That's not how rams do combat. It sort of reminds me of like if you had a competition. So when they set up MMA, they set that up to like figure out which fighting style was actually the best in combat, not just fighting against other people that are going to play by your same rules. And so I would like to see one of those people that does those slapping competitions up against, say, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu MMA fighter. The ram is the slapper. So, it comes up and goes, whap! And then, it's expecting this time where they just stand there and look at each other, and that's when the MMA fighter just tackles you to the ground and starts fighting you. It's just like, well, this isn't how I fight. And that's exactly what was going on there. That's not how they fight. Whoa. Look at the water dance. So that is a crocodile. It's a big male crocodile claiming that territory as his own. And when they do that, they bellow, and they make these super low frequency sounds that can be heard for a really long distance. And you can hear it. The sound is so intense, though, it makes the water over their back dance. Sometimes when they're in the shallows, like, it's insane how it dances. But you could see it. His back was well under the water, and the water was still dancing above it. Absolutely incredible. What a thing to see. I would love to see and hear that in person someday. Because, like, if you've ever been around just an emu drumming, and you hear that low frequency, like, you can feel it in your chest almost more than you can hear it. And that's just from an emu. Imagine something like that. Unbelievable. Okay, that is so intense, right? That's disturbing to see, but I don't see any evidence that this is actually an insect that is infected with any sort of neurological parasite. There are a lot of mind-controlling insect parasites from things like horsehair worms, which cause insects to drown themselves in water, to fungi such as cordyceps and it's like Ophiocordyceps, which mostly infect ants. And I guess the big thing here is I don't know any of these parasites that would hollow out their host like this. Plus, and like I said before, many of those are parasites of ants primarily, and this is a beetle. At least as far as I can tell, this looks like it's a beetle. It's missing some stuff, so it's a little harder to identify. So, but like I said, honestly, I don't think this is a parasite at all. I think this is probably an attack from a macro predator. If I had to bet money on what did this to this beetle, I would say something like a praying mantis. A praying mantis that ate most of the abdomen of this beetle before either getting full or releasing it for some other reason. I mean, like, I would bet money that the mantis that we saw earlier didn't eat that whole hummingbird. But the question here is, why is this beetle still walking around? And I think that has a lot to do with what is in the abdomen of insects, which is nothing exceedingly important in the short term. They've got their hearts in there, but they don't need their hearts as much as you do, because their blood, which is called hemolymph, doesn't transport oxygen like your blood does, just nutrients. So yes, without their hearts, their cells will eventually run out of energy, but not for a while. Much of their digestive system is in there too, so they won't process food anymore, but the energy wasn't going to make it to their cells anyway. Again, this will eventually be a problem, but if your abdomen was hollowed out by a giant macro predator, eventually starving to death would be the least of your concerns. Their reproductive organs are in the abdomen, so like this beetle's breeding days are over. But again, that probably wouldn't be on the top of your list of immediate problems. In your case, your blood would all pour out as it's highly pressurized in tubes. And so even if your lungs were still present, oxygen would not reach your cells and you would die very rapidly. Well, the beetle has an open circulatory system that is not highly pressurized and again does not transport oxygen. That is delivered by a system of tubes called a tracheal system. Now the inlets to the tracheal system, which are called spiracles, are generally in the abdomen. But even if those are not intact, well then I would suggest that this beetle has the biggest spiracle ever right now. Its entire back. In other words, this beetle is mortally wounded, but it has no injuries that would cause rapid death. It might walk around like this for a long time, until the nutrients in its remaining hemolymph and other tissues become depleted and it collapses and dies. But I don't see any evidence that this is a case of a neurological control by some parasite. Whoa. Wow. Oh, man. Both? Oh my goodness. What's your plan now, buddy? Wow! Okay. So that's a cormorant swallowing two enormous fish. Cormorants, they are so funny. So that one looks like it's some sort of rescue. It's missing a wing. But my gracious. So cormorants are funny birds anyway. I mean, obviously there's a lot that's amusing about that bird. But cormorants, they don't have any sort of oily covering that prevents their feathers from becoming waterlogged. And so they're a diving bird. So they'll dive into the water, they'll catch fish, they pop out, they swallow them like that. But they become waterlogged, and so they'll need to stand and dry out for a long time. I can pretty much guarantee that even if that cormorant had two wings, after that meal, it's not going to be able to fly for a while. It's just going to weigh too much, and it would be waterlogged. That's almost unbelievable to watch. And I will tell you, so I've told this story before, but I watched an anhinga one time. An anhinga is a close relative of the cormorant. I think they're each other's closest relatives. And it's a really similar bird. It's got a more spear-like bill, and they swim around underwater and they spear stuff. But they then swallow it like that. And it was while I worked at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and it was hunting an African cichlid that was in the hippo pool. And it was like the biggest cichlid in there. And it had speared it, so it's like, well, that's a shame, but There's no way it's gonna be able to swallow that fish. And it popped up, and just like with that first one, like it wasn't even a problem. It was, you know, barely an inconvenience. Unbelievable. The anhingas they call snake birds, and obviously those adaptations that allow them to swallow huge prey are very similar to what you find there in the cormorants. And I like to imagine that this is what Spinosaurus looked like eating its prey. Which, I mean, it's still no T-Rex, but that makes Spinosaurus pretty darn cool.
The next category is animal identification.
All right, let's do it. Let's see here. That's really amazing. Okay, so that creature, at first it looked fake when it was on the other side of the truck, but once I get a better look at it, that is an Asian animal called I think it's called a takin, and they are the closest living relatives to the mountain goat, which I actually had an awesome experience with mountain goats recently. Now, I'll post some pictures, maybe some video from that experience on Instagram this week sometime. So if you want to check us out on Clint's Reptiles on Instagram, there it'll be. But mountain goats are not true goats. Goats are actually domesticated ibexes. But these guys, the takins, they're actually almost as big as a muskox, which is also a close relative of theirs, though not as close as the mountain goats. And actually, they're both closer related to actual goats than they are to muskoxen. But anyway, that is a really cool animal. And it kind of reminds me, we still need to do a video about the ungulates. So if you'd like to see that sooner or later, let me know. Okay, wait. So that first one, I think is just a koi. I think that's just a koi. I'm gonna back it up a minute. Yeah, I think that's a koi that just happens to have a pattern that looks a little bit like a face on its head, like a long fin koi. And then the second one, this one, when I first saw it, I thought it kind of looked like a wolffish, but I realize now that what I thought it had two big forward-facing eyes, and wolffish don't quite have that, but they're kind of forward-facing, and it's got these big teeth. But as I'm looking at it more closely, those are the wrong eyes. Those are not eyes. The eyes are in a kind of a more normal side of the head fish position. It's just got kind of a dark spot with a little white dot there in the front. And so this is a sheep's head, is what this is. Like a sheep in wolf's clothing, I guess. Sheep's head are crazy because if you've seen pictures of them, you probably have seen pictures of them before, it's because they've got basically human-looking teeth. They've got many rows of teeth going back. So it's like if you bred a human and a shark, this is what you'd get. Rows of human teeth that they use to crush hard-shelled prey. So that's the second one. So we got a koi, a sheep's head, and the third one is fake. Fake, made-up animal. It's sort of fortunate because right now, like all the AI fakes and stuff, if you know what to look for, like, you can still tell. But like that first one, the talking, I thought that was an AI fake at first. And here in a few years, we're going to be seeing all sorts of unidentified animals that don't really exist, and it's going to be stupid. Is this the result of successful mammoth cloning? No. Very cool, though. Okay. This is not a super hard one, because there's only one living animal that could be, which is an Asian elephant. You can tell by the size of the ears that it's not either of the two African elephants. And when especially Asian elephants are younger, they've got quite a bit of hair to them. Sort of similarly to larger dinosaurs that may have been feathered when they were young, but then when they get very large animals, especially large endotherms like this, have a relatively small amount of surface area per unit volume, and so overheating is actually a bigger problem than staying warm enough. So while they're little and they've got more surface area per unit volume, a little bit of insulation sometimes is beneficial for them, but they don't tend to have it as adults, and that's why you've got semi-woolly baby Asian elephants, but by the time they're adults, you don't see much of that thick hair on them anymore.
This man is attacked by a strange interdimensional creature.
That is a problem.
It's some kind of shape-shifting creature.
All right. Darn interdimensional creatures always attacking people. So that's clearly a galliform bird. We've got a video about them, but okay. So if this is North America, I would say that's probably a turkey, but it looked a little small for a turkey, and it looked to be very territorial. So I think that's a bird called like a capercaillie. They're a European bird. They're the largest grouse, and they're a giant grumpy grouse. And they're really intense. They make intense sounds. They get a big hooked bill. An intense, awesome bird. I don't know of them to ever come from or go to another dimension. But they do kind of change form, so a shapeshifter maybe. Look at you run. Oh. Bar's kind of low for mystery animals this year, I guess. That'd be a skunk. What could have done that? A shark. Here's great white shark with no tail I caught on camera. All right. So that thing does have no tail. But they never have tails. It's not a great white shark or any other kind of shark. It's actually more closely related to you. The most closely related to pufferfishes. It's a mola. And again, we have a whole video about them and their close relatives, but I love them. Often called the giant ocean sunfishes. They are super cool, always tailless, frequently up like that, kind of basking in the sun, hence the name. Whoa. Wait, I just checked that out. On the one, its leg separated from its wing. It's built into the wing on the other one. So that is, of course, a bat raccoon, or a raccoon bat. It's what happens when you ask AI to mix a raccoon and a bat. You get a raccoon bat. Unknown creature caught on camera in Madagascar. Oh. That is not Madagascar. Alright, so that'd be a skunk again. This is the year for skunks. And since there are no skunks in Madagascar, I'm going to go with that's not Madagascar.
I was taking a video of my husband snorkeling in the ocean, and we saw this. What is that?
This is a stingray. Okay. Kind of a weak crop this time, but a couple cool animals in there to discover, and probably we're going to run into more and more fake animals, so that's exciting.
Clint,
Yes?
let's brighten your day a little bit.
Thank you.
And see some emerald tree skinks.
I'm so excited about this. All right. That is the perfect emerald tree skink video. That is the perfect emerald tree skink video. So sometimes people are like, well, it just wants to get out, and this shows you exactly what they want. Because Every time people try to tell me what they think the motivation is for an emerald tree skink coming and playing with me, they're like, well, it just wants food. I'm like, it'll run by tongs with food on them to come play with you. Well, it just wants out. Well, for one thing, I can leave the enclosure open and they won't go anywhere unless somebody walks up there, and then they're all about it. That one jumped off onto the floor. What's the first thing it does? Runs right up her leg. They do that all the time. Like, I never worry about them getting on the ground. I'm like, other than people stepping on them. Like, if it gets on the ground, don't worry about it. Just stay where you are. It'll crawl up your leg. And they love people. That was the most emerald tree skink thing ever. Jumps out. It has its freedom. It would much rather climb up your leg and hang out with you. Because they're made of magic.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
Love that cover. So that, I love this. See, here's the thing. Sometimes people have watched our videos on them and they're like, are they really like that? Yeah. No, they're really like that. Like that's every time you open the enclosure during the middle of the day. In the evening or early in the morning, a lot of times they're a little less playful. But if you got your enclosure right about chest height like that, they just want to come out and play with you. And that leap, that was a really good slow motion. That's how they're going to greet you. They just want to come out and play. Because they're not real animals. They're made up. Nope, there it is. Yeah, they love crawling onto heads, but I found when they get on a head, they're quick to jump off of the head. But if you get a camera close to one, they're gonna go check that out too. They are so much fun, and so is this. This whole video has been a lot of fun. Should we do it again? As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon. Now, I should tell you, our last TikTok video like this got, I think, unfairly demonetized. And so we redid it and re-released it with 3 new videos. And we also lost monetization on most of that video as well. And so the reason that we can continue to make these videos without fear that we will no longer be able to feed our families is thanks to all of these people. So if you'd like to continue to see content like this in the future, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It really makes this possible. I would much rather be kicked by a cassowary, honestly, than an ostrich.
Should we line that up?
Getting kicked by a... Okay, yeah, I'll take a kick from a cassowary, and you take a kick from an ostrich, and we'll compare.
We'll compare notes.
Yeah. Or maybe we should just have Coyote Peterson take both kicks.
I greatly exaggerate that.
Yeah. He's just acting dead. But he really committed to the role. They let us bury him and everything. Did the whole funeral, the embalming process. It was impressive.
Wake up!
Yeah. At first, it got lifted off. And it managed to find new footing. I don't know what the plan was, if it just ends up riding a hummingbird.